The Lantern Maker's Daughter. In the lively coastal city of Eldoria, where the sea whispered secrets to the cliffs and the markets overflowed with spices, silks, and dreams, lived a young woman named Lira. At 24, Lira had more choices than most people in the world could ever imagine. She could wake up and decide to study literature at the Grand University on the Hill, or train as a ship navigator, or apprentice with the famous glassblowers whose lanterns lit the harbor every night. She could travel to the mountain temples, join a theater troupe, or simply sit in a cafe reading books from distant lands. Her parents were kind merchants who had never known hunger. The city was safe. The future stretched before her like an endless golden road. Yet, Lira was restless and often unhappy. "Nothing feels right," she would sigh to her friends over sweet lemon tea. "There are too many paths. How do I know which one to take? What if I choose wrong and waste my life?" Her friends would laugh gently. "You're lucky, Lira. Most people don't get to choose at all." But she didn't truly hear them. One stormy autumn evening, as rain danced on the rooftops and the wind howled through the narrow streets, Lira took shelter in an old shop at the edge of the harbor district. The sign above the door, faded by salt and time, read, "The Lantern Maker." Inside, the shop smelled of beeswax, cedar wood, and warm oil. Hundreds of lanterns hung from the ceiling, some simple, some intricate, glowing with soft golden light that pushed back the darkness. Behind the counter sat an elderly man with weathered hands and kind eyes the color of deep ocean water. His name was Kyle. "You look troubled, child," he said, his voice warm like aged honey. "Come, sit by the fire. I was just about to light the night lanterns." Lira accepted the stool and a cup of spiced tea. As the storm raged outside, she told him her worries, how she had opportunities others only dreamed of, yet felt paralyzed by them, how every choice seemed both a gift and a burden. Her friends would laugh gently. "You're lucky, Lira. Most people don't get to choose at all." But she didn't truly hear them. Kyle tucked again at his lap. "You think not having choices is better?" He gestured to a half-finished lantern on his workbench. It was made of delicate brass and thin rice paper, beautiful but clearly incomplete. "Let me tell you a story about a girl who had almost no choices at all and still built a life worth remembering." Many years ago, in a small village nestled between harsh mountains and a war-torn border, lived a girl named Sira. She was born into a world that offered her almost nothing. Her people were caught between two warring kingdoms. Soldiers burned fields, raiders stole livestock. Hunger was a constant visitor. Sira's mother died when she was 7, leaving her with a father whose hands shook with illness and a younger brother who cried from emptiness. There were no schools for girls in their village, no safe roads to travel, no merchants who came through anymore. Her future seemed written before she could even speak. Marry young, work the dry soil until her back broke, and pray the wars spared her family. But Sira had one small gift. She could make things beautiful with whatever she found. She collected broken glass from ruined caravans, twisted copper wire from old fences, dried wildflowers, and scraps of fabric. At night, while her father and brother slept, she would sit by the faint light of their single oil lamp and create tiny lanterns, fragile, glowing things that turned even the poorest hut into something magical. The villagers began calling her the Lantern Girl. One terrible winter when she was 14, soldiers came and took most of the young men, including her father. Her brother fell ill with fever. The village elders said there was no hope. He would not survive without medicine they could not afford or reach. Sira had 2 terrible choices: stay and watch her brother die, or leave everything she knew and try to cross the mountains alone to find a healer in the neutral city beyond the border. She chose to go. With nothing but a small sack, 3 of her best lanterns, and her father's old walking stick, Sira began the journey. She had no map, no money, no guarantee of safety. The mountains were full of wolves, bandits, and snow that could swallow a person whole. Many had tried before her and never returned. But she walked. For 12 days she walked, sleeping in caves, drinking melted snow, trading her lanterns for bits of bread from frightened travelers. When wolves howled, she lit her lanterns and sang old songs her mother had taught her, as if light and music could keep death away. When she fell and twisted her ankle, she tied it with strips of her own dress and kept going. When a bandit took her sack and laughed at her small treasures, she looked him in the eyes and said quietly, "Those lanterns are all I have, but my brother has even less. Take them if you must, but know you are stealing a life." Something in her voice made the bandit pause. He gave back 2 lanterns and a little dried meat before disappearing into the trees. On the 13th day, half dead and limping, Sira reached the neutral city. She collapsed at the gates, still clutching one glowing lantern. The healer saved her brother's life, but only because Sira arrived in time with the last of her strength. Word of the girl who crossed the mountains with nothing but lanterns spread through the city. A kind widow who made real lanterns for the wealthy took Sira in. She taught her the proper craft, how to stretch paper perfectly, how to shape brass, how to mix oils that burned longer and brighter. Sira worked from sunrise to sunset. She had no time for doubt or restlessness. She had one path before her, and she walked it with everything she had. Years passed. She became known as the finest lantern maker in the city. Her creations were not just lights, they were hope made visible. During the longest nights of war, people said her lanterns seemed to shine warmer, guiding lost travelers home. She married a gentle cartographer who loved her stories. They had 3 children. She taught every one of them that beauty could be made from almost nothing. And when the wars finally ended and her people were free, Sira returned to her ruined village, not as a broken girl, but as a woman who carried light. She built a workshop there. She taught other girls who once believed they had no choices. She showed them how to turn scraps into something meaningful. Kael's voice grew quiet as he finished the tale. "That girl was my mother." Lira stared at him, stunned. Kael gently placed the lantern he had been working on into her hands. It was almost complete now, delicate, glowing, imperfect, but alive with warmth. "She had almost no choices," he said, but she refused to let that stop her from choosing how she would live. She chose courage when fear was easier. She chose creation when destruction surrounded her. She chose love when the world was cruel. And because she did, I am here. You are here, listening to her story by lantern light. He looked at Lira with those deep ocean eyes. "You have many paths, child. That is a rare and beautiful thing. Do not waste it by fearing the choosing. Pick one with your whole heart. Walk it with everything you have. If it doesn't feel right later, you have the freedom to choose again. Most people in this world never get that chance. Honor those who never had it by using yours well." Lira left the lantern shop that night carrying the lantern Kael had given her. The storm had passed, and the streets glistened under starlight. For the first time in years, the weight of too many choices felt lighter. The next morning, she enrolled in the Glassblowers Guild, not because it was perfect, but because something in her heart whispered that this path, for now, felt like light. She still had doubts sometimes, but whenever they grew too loud, she would light Kael's lantern and remember the girl who crossed mountains with nothing but scraps and courage. And in those moments, Lira would smile, grateful for every door open before her, and she would choose, again and again, to walk forward and make something beautiful with the life she had been given. Because some people had almost no choices at all, and still found a way to fill the darkness with light.